You'll have noticed that this part now lacks the tube that was in the centre. This was on the front of the lantern, and there's a reason for that. Both the ring that we discussed earlier and the tube are now fitted as the receptors for the lantern slide lens. Because it became clear, and no doubt it was obvious to many viewing, that what had happened, I think, it's a fairly common story actually, that when this no longer was required professionally, this mechanism, it was stored away maybe in the cinema, in a cupboard or under the stage, which is very common, and then someone dragged it out years later. Perhaps the talkies had come in, no one was interested in silent movies, and there were lots of old 35mm prints around for hobbyists to play with. Decided to use this machine, found the old lantern that we've discovered it with as a light source, a lamp house, and had the lens tube and ring that were intended for the slide lens, but didn't need them. But what that hobbyist would have needed was a tube between the lantern and the mechanism to stop light overspill. If you're in a projection box, in a professional projection box, you don't worry too much about the light overspill from the machine. In fact, it helps illuminate the room. But if you're in a domestic situation, you don't want to fill the room with light from the overspill. So that's why this hobbyist made an aluminium cover for this section to stop the light spill from this gap, and then had the clever idea of using that tube instead of there to put it there in the gap between the lantern and the mechanism. So it's all making sense now, and I made the decision not to try to keep the history of the use of the machine by an amateur, because we don't have any specific history, but to put the ring back after cleaning up, not quite finished the cleaning up, where it belongs, and this tube, which is threaded at this end to accept the rack and pinion collar for the lantern slide lens. More about that in a moment. There are some holes that whoever did this made, and they'll be filled in with solder. So we're getting to reinstating the lantern lens, which is good news. And the collar that I mentioned would have looked something like this, and it would slide into there, sorry, not slide in, it would screw into there, and then the actual brass lens barrel would go in there. The problem, this is a spare that I have, but it's the wrong size. I need one that has an external thread of 2.5 inches that will, with luck, actually screw into that. And then, hopefully, if I can find a collar of the right size, it will still have its lens in it. Otherwise I have to find a lens as well. But I think that's quite a big advance to get that in there. And it starts to give an indication of what the whole thing looked like when it was being operated. So I'm pleased with how that's going. This pad roll is now fixed, it goes on there square. Didn't take too long to do that. Now, something to be considered is spools. Here's one I prepared earlier. So I had these ancient Etruscan spools, which I think they're pretty early. They're maybe made in someone's workshop. Didn't quite get that professional looking edge, but when I say spool, it's 4 flanges of course, 2 flanges per spool. Many years ago I obtained this spool. It's another junk, brass, early, covered in verdigris, otherwise black, and I wasn't sure whether to polish it up, so I thought what I would do was polish up one side, and I did in fact polish this up, this side. You can see it's different, and I thought I'll wait 20 or 30 years and see what it looks like when it's dulled down a bit. That might sound a bit unlikely and a bit sad, but actually that's what I did. I waited 35 years and here we are. And the answer is it looks pretty good, but I've only got one spool, and if I want to make a replica to match this, the replica is going to be shiny. So I think me waiting 35 years was a waste of time. I think I've got to just shine this up so it matches the replica. But the first thing, obviously, we need a wooden core for that. Easy. Now I could get some brass plate, so something like 1mm, some brass sheet, and probably cut these out with a jeweller's saw, but half an hour a hole, 12 holes. That could be almost 6 hours according to my maths. So I don't want to do that. What I want to do is try and get the brass sheet laser cut, or rather sheets, 2 of them laser cut, and then figure out how to do something that looks like this edging, but I've got an idea about that. This has been bent and beaten over by someone who knew what they were doing, and I don't, so I need to just fake up something that looks like that. Would have been much easier with a black painted spool for me to fake that up. Things are going to be exposed brass, so it's not so easy, but I've got a plan, a master plan, a cunning plan, and we'll see whether that works. So that's the spool idea. It doesn't match the spools that are in the Kamm catalogue for 1914. They've got straight bars, not circles, but once a projector got into use, all kinds of spools were used all the time, so I'm not concerned about that.